Bob Cusack is editor-in-chief of The Hill, and he joins me now from Washington. So, Bob, now that Otto Warmbier's parents have weighed in on these comments from President Trump, does it amplify this issue for the president at this point?
Yeah, I think this is one of the more unsettling things the president has said. He said a lot of controversial things, but he's getting bipartisan criticism on this, and the fact that the parents who had been very critical of President Obama on their son and had worked with President Trump now really criticizing Trump for what he said it's not a good thing for the president. It's been a very rough week for the president, and this ends it on a bad note.
You know, we know the president was applauded by foreign leaders for not making concessions to Kim Jong-un in these nuclear talks. But what's been the reaction he's receiving at home on Capitol Hill from both sides of the aisle?
It's somewhat mixed, Rena. I mean, there are some members and congressional officials who think, okay, good, he didn't just accept a deal to get positive headlines. But at the same time, this was going to potentially move the topic from Michael Cohen to a historic agreement with North Korea. That didn't happen. So now the president wrote Art of the Deal. So this is his allies are saying this is part of the process. Sometimes you have to walk away from a proposal and then strike a deal later on. But at this point, there's been a lot of friendly talk, at least recently, between North Korea and the president. But there hasn't been results. And at the end of the day, it's all about results and making sure that they denuclearize, and they haven't done that. They haven't agreed to anything on nuclear weapons.
It doesn't seem like they are going to anytime soon, based on what we've heard coming out of this. But I want to ask you now, I want to turn to Michael Cohen at this point. The president's former attorney will testify again on March 6th before the House Intelligence Committee. You got former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who's weighing in on Cohen's testimony. Here's what he told CBSN earlier today.
The prosecutors have a lot of experience working with witnesses that have problematic credibility. You prop up and strengthen their testimony and the evidence that they're prepared to provide by supporting it with corroborating evidence, documents, recordings, contemporaneous recollections that were shared with associates who can also testify. The extraordinary thing to me with Cohen's testimony was just how much of that material he referred to. So there is clearly a large volume of material that could potentially support his otherwise problematic testimony.
Everybody wants to know about this corroborating evidence that Michael Cohen spoke about, McCabe cites here. How problematic do you think this is for the president?
I think it's very problematic if there is corroborating witnesses and documents that back Michael Cohen's testimony up. And certainly he was naming names in his public testimony on Wednesday. And this is a problem for the president if it can be proven. I think he came across as generally credible in his public testimony, but there were some things, and conservatives are seizing on the fact that he said he didn't want a job in D.C. Well, that's contrary to a lot of reporting. That's contrary to what he actually said on cable news. So that is, and Republicans are going to say he lied under oath on that. So, but if he can point to other people, he pointed to Alan Weisselberger, who certainly is very familiar over the years with President Trump's finances. He is a cooperating witness. So will Weisselberger decide, okay, I'm gonna come forward, and I'm also going to testify, and I'm going to back up what Michael Cohen says. But certainly, Michael Cohen's testimony was problematic. The one good thing for the president, though, of his testimony was he didn't have any direct proof on collusion. That was a very big thing for Trump, but it was very damning testimony.
You know, the president actually criticized Cohen in several tweets this morning, again, about Cohen's statements, saying they were fraudulent, dishonest. As you mentioned, no collusion. But Cohen's allegations, the allegations he makes, they go beyond this Russia probe. How do you think the White House will handle the fallout from that?
I think they've got to be very concerned about the Southern District of New York. Those are very aggressive investigators, and it's beyond collusion. It touches upon finances. There are just many ways where the president has to be worried, whether it's the hush money for Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, whether it's the finances of the Trump Organization. There's just a lot of tentacles here that even if he does get off on collusion, there are other issues that he's got to worry about. Michael Cohen also was alluding to another investigation investigation that he indicated has not gone public. We don't know about that one. So he provided more clues, but there are a lot of questions. And House, now that the Democrats have the House, they're going to continue doing these type of hearings. So this is going to go on for months.
Yeah, it certainly does feel that way. I also want to ask you, Bob, about this New York Times report saying the president ignored intelligence officials to give his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, security clearance. So assuming these reports are correct, what does this tell you about the president's relationship to Kushner, Kushner's influence inside the White House as well?
It raises a lot of questions because it was reported for a long time that Kushner couldn't get his security clearance, and then all of a sudden he got it. And people were asking, well, how did he get it? Why did he get it? And a lot of people assumed that, well, maybe the investigations around Kushner had just evaporated. Well, this New York Times report is an explosive article, and it suggests, hey, the president said, I want this done, get it done. He told his chief of staff, John Kelly, to get it done, and that's what happened. So this is another thing that House Democrats are going to be able to investigate and use their subpoena power and get to the bottom of, is this report true, and was politics really getting in the way of national security?
Bob Cusack. Bob, so grateful you could join us to break it all down.
Thanks, Rena.
You bet.